Chapter 1848 Blood Rebirth. In Deng Shintong's mind, Gao Changkong is the first person he must defeat. We haven't communicated for a long time, and in 3 years we have made great progress in our respective fields. Deng Shintong successfully stepped into the realm of Ypsilon. He knew in his heart that his own talents and Gao Changkong's were only at this place where the ability levels of both sides could be brought to the same level that he would have a chance to defeat Gao Changkong. Your ability, Reincarnation Deduction, can be used once every year. But before me, you have already experienced the battle to encircle and suppress the mechanical army, as well as the previous trial battle. I believe that your ability was not activated that time. So this time, your ability is invalidated. I want to see how you can beat me. Between lifts, the world is reshaped. Great Sumeru illusion created light, leaving the entire world where Gao Changkong was in pure white light. Deprivation of vision. Then, through visual synesthesia, it affects your hearing, smell, taste, and even touch. When people are in a blind state, their fighting power will inevitably be greatly weakened. Gao Changkong knew the abilities that Deng Shintong possessed, so when he first entered the battlefield, he chose to close his eyes. The combat uniform has the function of radar detection, which can be used to judge the movements of surrounding objects and can capture Deng Shintong's position and the angle of attack. It can be said that Deng Shintong guessed correctly this time. Gao Changkong's ability had been used in the previous battle. It's not that wanted to hide his incompetence, but the last time he fought, he faced the number 3 in the Fremon's pantheon, the moon god Zenobog. Anyone who dares to hold back a little will be ruthlessly strangled by the other side. It should be said that except for the followers brought by Zhang Yi, none of the others who could appear on this battlefield were easy to deal with. Gao Changkong is a rare talent in the world, but among all of you present, which one is a unique talent among hundreds of millions of people? As a result, the sudden encounter with Deng Shintong left unprepared. In this state, the impact of visual deprivation is very great. Behind Gao Changkong, a huge wheel emerged, and pieces of stone formed by the materialization of Sanskrit spells were suspended behind him. Gao Changkong's right hand opened. Sun Seal. The golden sun sword appeared in S palm. Move the Mingwang seals. The armor of is worn on S body to protect S body. Deng Shintong had already rushed to the front, staring at Gao Changkong, forgetting the anger in his heart. At this moment, S' eyes were extremely focused, because knew that this might be S' only chance in this life to defeat Gao Changkong and wash away his own shame. The Western sword comes out. Song etching. Invisible mirrors densely appeared in the sky, covering the entire surrounding land. The moment Deng Shintong's sword came out, a gorgeous silver 4-pointed star bloomed on the left side of Gao Changkong. Attacks launched at the speed of light can achieve attacks across distances in space with the help of invisible light and shadow mirrors in the air. The 4-pointed star flew straight towards Gao Changkong's left temple, intending to take his life with one blow. Both parties knew each other too well and knew that even a moment of relaxation could result in death, so there was no need to test each other at all. Any move was a sure-kill move. Gao Changkong felt a strong sense of death blooming on the left side of his head. The armor formed by the Dongmingwang seal also cracked silently, unable to block this amazing blow. As the heir to a famous noble family in Huaxu State, Deng Shintong attended a prestigious university since childhood. In keeping with his family's wishes, he learned from first-rate masters in humanities, history, social interaction, languages, martial arts, and swordsmanship. The main weapon that chose to learn was the Western sword, because this kind of swordsmanship is the simplest and most direct, and it is very entertaining to watch. Compared with the ancient sword of Huaxu Kingdom, the sword in martial arts takes a different approach, and the tip of the sword is mainly used because of its fragility. But the sharpest edge of a Western sword, the killing move, is the thorn. And this one move can kill the enemy. Deng Shintong's move, Songwa etching, also perfectly demonstrated the advantages of the Western sword. There was only one word: fast. Gao Changkong's pupils narrowed slightly, and he held the sword in his right hand to block the attack that was deliberately aimed at his left temple. so simply raised his left arm and blocked it. Wearing the heavy Dong Dong Mingwang armor, S body is like a heavy-duty mecha soldier. The materialized armor is golden in color, covering S' entire body. The wrist is an integrated attack and defense part. The wrist armor has the highest strength and can be used for collision and smashing. When the tip of the sword pierced Gao Changkong's wrist armor, blocking it completely but also deflecting it from its original trajectory. The wrist armor shattered visibly, and then collapsed. The sword behind the four-pointed star scratched Gao Changkong's scalp, and the combat uniform helmet on his head was cut abruptly. Gao Changkong took the opportunity to adjust his body shape, looked at Deng Shintong in the distance, and took a deep breath. It seems that you have just stepped into Ypsilon. Rich people are rich people. Even if they don't have any talent, they can still catch up with others with the help of their family. Gao Changkong deliberately spoke in this tone. Knew what Deng Shintong cared about most, which was nothing more than S' family background. These words, which seemed to be compliments but were actually derogatory, were meant to make Deng Shintong lose his balance. However, Deng Shintong is no longer the same Deng Shintong. After hearing Gao Changkong's words, he adjusted his fencing posture and said calmly, "My family background is the same as your talent, both of which were given by God. Since God has given it to me, I will enjoy it peacefully. What's wrong with that?" As soon as finished speaking, Gao Changkong suddenly attacked. A huge lion shadow appeared on his body. It had 9 heads and thick manes. It looked majestic and frightening. Roar! A loud roar spread forward like a trumpet, and Deng Shintong's movement, which was about to attack, suddenly slowed down. Felt like his head was placed inside a huge bell, and there were hundreds of outside still ringing the bell vigorously. His head was almost about to explode. The moment Deng Shintong was stunned, Gao Changkong appeared. He held the Sun Will sword in his hand and flew up from the spot like a kite. A moment later, only a shadow that could not be captured by the naked eye remained, and he rushed straight towards Deng Shintong. The speed was unimaginable, and the sword in the sword ruthlessly chopped towards Deng Shintong's waist. Deng Shintong's head was buzzing with noises, and he was completely unable to launch an effective counterattack at this moment. But Gao Changkong's attack was close at hand, and he knew he had no chance to escape. So, Deng Shintong really turned into light. He disappeared from the spot in an instant. Gao Changkong's sword attack fell into nothingness, and one sword destroyed the entire earth. And the next moment, Deng Shintong appeared in a place 1,000 meters away. He raised his head and activated the ability of Holy Body Blessing, using the power of light to block the sweeping energy and flying debris. My mind slowly regained clarity. Song etching is not just a sword skill, it should be said to be a field ability. Set up invisible light mirrors in an area, and then allow Deng Shintong's attack to reach anywhere within the area instantly. It also includes the body of Deng Shintong, which can transform into light. So within this area, Deng Shintong can complete instant teleportation. Gao Changkong's attack missed, Deng Shintong's mind regained clarity, and it was his turn for the next round of attack. The blue-edged sword attacked Gao Changkong again, and the silver four-pointed star shone brilliantly in the sky, covering Gao Changkong's body. The feeling that almost stings the skin appeared again, and Gao Changkong felt as if someone was pointing a dagger at his eyes. The reincarnation deduction of Zen Seal could not be used, and he was also deprived of his visual ability, which put him at a huge disadvantage from the very beginning. Hastily drew his sword, and swept out with the sharp edge of the Sun Will sword, bursting with golden light. The golden and silver forces intertwined, collided, and annihilated in the air. Deng Shintong crouched down, transformed into a ruthless killing machine, quickly moved in the air with the help of the ability of Songhua etching, and then launched sword skills at the same time. Gao Changkong is currently unable to accurately determine Deng Shintong's location, and his supernatural power level has also been lowered to a lower level. It would be extremely irrational to rashly use a large-scale attack. So there was no way for him to stand far away and resist Deng Shintong's attacks again and again. I've learned my lesson. Although he was able to attack Deng Shintong, Deng Shintong's attack also had the characteristics of strange and fast. If Gao Changkong could concentrate on shrinking the defense circle and stabilizing his body, Deng Shintong would find it difficult to quickly break through his defense. Perhaps we can talk about it. This time it was Deng Shintong who spoke first. He was ruthless and left no room for other sympathy, but his tone was like that of an old friend. You rebelled against Blizzard City, just to avenge yourself. The culprit is the power group behind Zhuzheng. Back then, you were an investigation captain, powerful enough to make people switch sides for you. But now you are no longer powerful. You are already a Black Chariot-level mutant. If you are willing to surrender, perhaps I can help you overthrow Zhuzheng. Deng Shintong's words were a mixture of true and false, just like Gao Changkong's previous words. They were meant to interfere with the opponent's thinking ability and create loopholes in the opponent's offense and defense. Gao Changkong raised the corners of his mouth. You are nothing more than a running dog under Zhang Yi. What qualifications do you have to talk to me? Deng Shintong did not show any anger on his face. Zhang Yi is strong enough, so I am willing to be your partner. I have no objection to you calling him a running dog. After all, a cooperative relationship is nothing more than the weak serving as a running dog for the strong. Then, even if you are willing to be my running dog, how about being Zhang Yi's running dog? While he was speaking, two huge silver four-pointed stars shot out from between the edges of his swords, and the next moment appeared on the left and right sides of Gao Changkong. Like the moon surrounded by stars, it blooms beside Gao Changkong, shining brightly and dazzlingly, and its silver color is like the blade of a knife, trying to cut you into pieces. Gao Changkong formed the seal of the Aquarius with his left hand and raised it high above his head, absorbing both attacks. That's a really good suggestion, Deng Shintong. But his voice suddenly rose, with a strong sense of sarcasm in his tone. What I, Gao Changkong, did was not to be a dog for others. The lion dog started again, and a huge roar spread in all directions with Gao Changkong as the center. Deng Shintong retreated quickly, with some caution. But you alone can't capture Blizzard City. He stared at Gao Changkong. You have been labeled a traitor. The moment you step into Huashu country, everyone will want to kill you. You may be dead before you even reach the gate of Blizzard City. If you don't have Zhang Yi, without the help of the state machinery, there are many things you can't do at all. What's more, Zhuzheng already has someone around him who can deal with you. Gao Changkong's mouth corners curled up slightly. You mean the girl who was bred in an artificial womb? Haha, I've heard of her story. Perhaps you are right, Deng Shintong. My abilities are limited, and there are many things I cannot accomplish in my lifetime. But you don't understand. People like you never understand what people like me really want. Gao Changkong's tone was full of sarcasm. How can we expect a man who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth to understand the thoughts of a man like him who had reached the end of his rope? If only one day the person standing opposite was Zhang Yi. He will definitely understand what I mean. This thought occurred to Gao Changkong. What is the difference between him and Zhang Yi? In fact, one succeeded and the other failed. Gao Changkong fell into calm thought. After losing his greatest advantage, reincarnation deduction, his own combat effectiveness was reduced by at least 30%. The advantage of intelligence and the ability to predict the opponent's attack are extremely important. Right now, he had to fight for life and death with his opponent through hard power in an absolutely fair state. His ability is to teleport within a certain range, and even his attacks are instantaneous. But whether it's teleportation or instantaneous release, it's not completely no time difference. It's more like Zhang Yi, who built doors in the area and used the doors to move around and transfer attacks. Because every time he attacks, there are a few milliseconds left for me to react. I have determined the location of his door, but this prediction has been wrong several times in a row. In other words, he has moved the door. It is obviously useless to note the location of the door and predict his attack from it. After many consecutive fights, Gao Changkong made this clear. He already had a plan in mind. The area is not very large, only about 2 kilometers in radius. But the range of his praise of light is very wide, and the energy consumed by maintaining the light for a long time is not much. I guess he can't keep the ability activated all the time. All I have to do is leave this area. Deng Shintong's ability is not good at ultra-long-range attacks. After figuring this out, when Deng Shintong's sword skills attacked again, Gao Changkong's feet finally began to move. The golden holy sword in his hand swept across and shattered the silver four-pointed star. Then he suddenly exerted force with his legs and ran wildly into the distance, like a lion. Seeing Gao Changkong fleeing quickly, Deng Shintong was obviously stunned for a moment. This guy ran away? But Deng Shintong soon understood what Gao Changkong meant by this. No. He is just stalling for time and taking the opportunity to leave my territory. The rules of the game are life and death. The game will end only when one person from both sides dies. So even if one person hides and delays for long enough until the other person dies of old age, it is considered a win. After Gao Changkong escaped, Deng Shintong had to chase him. So he chose the same way, restraining his own praise of light, domain, and continued to fight with Gao Changkong meaninglessly. Deng Shintong couldn't catch up with Gao Changkong. He can only teleport within his own range. But when it comes to speed, he is not as good as Gao Changkong. Before the end of the world, the opponent was a world-class basketball star, but many people seem to have forgotten that his physical fitness was already world-class. After becoming an alien, the original advantages will only be infinitely magnified. Unleashing supernatural powers to fight and applying wisdom are his hobbies, while physical fitness is his specialty. Gao Changkong was quickly moving away from this area, and scenes gradually began to appear in his eyes. As long as he left Deng Shintong, the influence of praise of light would weaken. Deng Shintong was not in a hurry to catch up, and the distance between the two of them was getting farther and farther. They were all considering how the next battle would proceed and whether they could successfully kill their opponents. The battlefield where King Arthur descended was a desolate, ancient battlefield, with broken swords, burning chariots, and damaged battle flags everywhere. His enemy laughed wantonly as soon as he appeared. This battlefield is so beautiful. The sexy and enchanting woman spread her arms, and the blood-red hair on her head flowed down like a waterfall, extending to her perky buttocks. Even when facing King Arthur, who roamed Europe, her smile was still wanton and arrogant, and she did not take the enemy in front of her seriously at all. Hela. King Arthur recited his opponent's name. His opponent is Hela, the goddess of death from Asgard, the inhuman organization of the Europa Alliance. As both were foreigners from Europe, they were no strangers to each other and had crossed paths many times. When he met his opponent here, King Arthur raised his sword without any hesitation. No matter who you are, you will die here. Because the only one who can go all the way is me. King Arthur. Hela looked up at the sky, not taking King Arthur seriously at all. Her heart was filled with joy at this moment, because God knew how favorable the rules of this battlefield were for her. If she met King Arthur in the outside world, she might even be killed instantly. But here, everyone is on the same level, so she becomes invincible. Hela gave King Arthur a cold look. King Arthur, it is your misfortune to meet me. No matter how strong you are, you will definitely lose. When King Arthur heard Hela's arrogant words, he just smiled faintly, but his eyes were extremely cold. He didn't like to talk too much nonsense with the enemy. The sword inherited from the Levent family in his hand shone brilliantly, and the power of the embodiment turned it into a shining, broken steel sword. Excalibur. King Arthur's sword swept towards Hela, and surging energy was released from the tip of the sword, covering the entire space in front. Hela narrowed her eyes, her body slowly turning blood-red, and her hair twisted and extended like a venomous snake, even longer than her body. Facing King Arthur's sword, she simply chose to use her body to resist. She was red like a female monster, with her arms in front of her to protect her, and her sword approached, landing with a bang. A moment later, a long and obvious gully appeared on the ground in front of King Arthur, which was the track left by the sword. Hela's whereabouts were unknown. You're courting death by using your body to block the edge of my sword. King Arthur's ability, Power of the King, means the supreme power of the king. In front of him, the power of the enemy is weakened indiscriminately. Broken steel sword means destroying gold and jade and weakening the enemy's defense. This is the purest and most useful ability. Gila actually tried to resist with her body, so it was naturally difficult to stop it. Soon, a charming laugh sounded in King Arthur's ears. Ha ha, ha. Something red was wriggling on the ground. King Arthur looked down and saw blood beads rapidly condensing, then forming blood clots, and finally gathering into a hole. Hela's figure emerged from the blood clots and returned to her original appearance. At this moment, she was almost naked, and her red hair was used to make a long dress to cover her curvy body. Asgard's goddess of death Hela. She had another name before joining Asgard, called Bloody Mary. This is one of her abilities, Blood Rebirth. It is said that she will never die on the battlefield unless her last drop of blood is burned out. Even though she was chopped into countless pieces by King Arthur's sword, Hela still smiled wildly at him after she was resurrected. King Arthur, you can't kill me, because I am the god of death. A dark light flashed in King Arthur's eyes. So this is your confidence, isn't it? Being able to be reborn with a drop of blood is indeed a very powerful ability, which means it is extremely difficult to be killed. After all, at this time, the ability levels of both parties are at the same level. King Arthur could crush Hela's body, but it would be absolutely difficult for him to kill all her cells at once. Hela looked at King Arthur and showed off her figure to him. King Arthur, from the moment you met me, you've already lost. The rules here are that if you want to win, you must kill your opponent. I can't be killed by you at this moment. So, no matter how strong you are, no matter how talented you are, you will never be able to defeat me.